was very clear to me how they felt about me day one. And, I don't ever want to speak for Dave or speak for Josh. But it was, I knew I was going to be a Raider. I was just hoping that it'd be for longer than what my contract was at that moment. I've only wanted to be a Raider, and I told my agent, I said, I'm either going to be a Raider or I'm going to be playing golf. Like, I don't want to play anywhere else. That's how much this place means to me, and I know I don't get really fired up talking about it or anything like that, but I hope people can hear my heart on that I was dead serious when I meant that. And so, I had 1 year left on my contract. If it was 1 year, it was going to be 1 year, Thankfully it'll be 4 more.
It's an important day for Derek Carr when the T-shirt has sleeves. That's a big day.
Right.
That's a huge day in the football career of Derek Carr. That's formal attire, Pete says, for Derek Carr. The T-shirt with sleeves. And it was obvious he didn't get a pump in before the press conference to, vein out the biceps a little bit to make it a little more impressive. But anyway, I'm sorry. Lord, I apologize for being snarky at a moment like this when we should be celebrating the $40.5 million contract that was signed yesterday by Derek Carr, even though the true details show that if the Raiders decide, based upon 2022, that they want to abandon ship with Derek Carr, he will have made $24.9 million, and as long as he does not have an injury that prevents him from passing a physical when the season ends, they can cut him loose before 3 days after the Super Bowl. They'll have a window right after the Super Bowl to waive Derek Carr and avoid the balance of the deal, and they would have given him only $3.9 million more for this contract that they would otherwise avoid. And, they won't do it. That's why I heard you say, they're not going to do it. Well, then why do they have the ability to do it? Why do you have the ability to do it if you're never going to do it? Why would you bake into the contract the power to do it if it's something that you didn't want to at least have the option to do?
I agree with that. I don't understand. That's probably the aspect I don't understand as far as why Carr wouldn't want to protect himself a little bit more. I think realistically, you're right, they can do it. Realistically, the chances of them actually doing it, I think, are very low.
Agreed.
Right. Okay, good. I'm glad you agree there. Yeah, again, Derek Carr's good. He's arguably top 10 quarterback in football. And I'm not saying he's top 5, but 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. Derek Carr's right in that range for sure. He's a player. So between that and then, okay, who's better out there that you're going to get? He's played really awesome football the last 2 years. And the guy you just traded the farm for, the reason he came there, one of the reasons, is because of the quarterback. So there is a little extra protection with that, with Davante Adams. So this is a player, and again, I don't understand. It is risky on his from his standpoint. But at the same time, I think, realistically, the chances of him being cut after the year are very minimal. And it's about as team-friendly and a nice of a team-friendly deal as you're going to find this day and age in the NFL.
Derek Carr strikes me as a guy who has been spewing some version of BS for so long he's finally started to believe it. And I apologize to anyone out there who is offended by my hot take about Derek Carr, but I've always thought there was a certain tinge of fraud to Derek Carr, and he was acting the way that he thought a franchise quarterback should act and saying the things that he thinks a franchise quarterback should say, like I would never play for any other team. Do we really believe that if the Raiders cut him after this season, he would never, ever, ever play football for any other team for the balance of his life? I don't buy that. I just don't buy it. That's the mindset that he has for now. The moment they kick him to the curb is the moment the mindset changes. So I say all that because, Chris, I wonder whether or not Dave Ziegler, the new GM, and Josh McDaniels, the new head coach, found a way to use that against him, to get him to do a Tom Brady team-friendly deal.
Maybe.
To give the team all the power here. To do so. You're going to help us afford some of these other guys. One of the things that Derek Carr said yesterday, the last time I signed my contract, my best friend, Khalil Mack, had to leave.
Yeah.
Didn't have the cap space for Khalil Mack. I think cash flow is an issue, too, for the Raiders.
Thank
that may
you.
Be one of the reasons why they didn't.
Yeah.
That may be. Look, because here's the thing to remember.
I wanted to go there, Mike. I think that's a reason here.
Let me explain why I don't believe at the end of the day they're going to cut him. there is a convention within the broader industry of negotiating contracts between agents and teams that if you have a guarantee that is tied to the waiver period, the days after the Super Bowl when the waiver period begins for the following year, if it's tied to that, it's never going to be exercised. You're not going to cut the guy. It's just there because they didn't want to have to fully fund the payment. They didn't want it to be fully guaranteed at signing. They wanted to build in some delay for financial reasons.
Right.
When the decision point comes in March at the start of the league year, then it's fair game to cut the guy. But if the Raiders would cut Derek Carr after 1 year, it would be regarded as extremely bad form, and it would hurt their efforts to negotiate similar contracts with other players. So that's what leads me to believe the Raiders aren't going to do it. Then again, the Raiders is the Raiders, and they've done things like that over the years. But it may just be, for all this hype about the Raiders being in Las Vegas, they may not have the money that we think they have.
100%.
Plain and simple.
I think that's a real thing. Mike, I think we both know. I mean, I know for sure. One of the reasons they traded Khalil Mack was the fact that they just couldn't pay him. They were not going to be able to pay him the huge signing bonus check or some of the big guaranteed money he was going to have to get in year one. And that is what ultimately led them to going, okay, we can't do it. I would think it's one of the first things that came to my mind when I went, wait, Derek Carr, okay, I understand some of the reasons, but why else would he do this or whatever? And I did come to that, thought pretty early on to go, well, maybe the Raiders can't just write him a check for $50 million like most quarterbacks are going to get as soon as they sign the contract. I think that's a very real aspect. We've heard those rumors about the organization as a whole. So, yeah, I think between that, some of the things Derek Carr says, I think, I do take him at his word in that fact that he wants the good team around. He's one of those guys, Mike, that I talk about every now and then that piss you off, that I'll say he's – again, I'm just using the word for this. He's not selfish in the fact that he has to take every dollar in the world. He's going to go. He's a guy that's obviously said, whether I have $75 million in the bank or $150 million in the bank, my life doesn't really change. So I'd like to win football games. I think that's where he's got to. And Mike, you talked about his personality. I had the same thoughts about the guy before I ever met him. I wish you could meet. He's just a corny guy a little bit. He's just a corny guy. But that's who he is. And that's why I do like him. He knows who he is. He knows he's corny guy. And you know how he's not or he might be corny, but he's not fake, Mike, is the fact that, man, his teammates love him. They love him. I mean, whether it's Khalil Mack,
Baker Mayfield.
Unlike Baker Mayfield, exactly right. When you talk to Raiders players, all they will talk about, and Devontae Adams, who's there for them, they love Derek Carr. So there is something to him there, even though, yeah, he can come off definitely a little corny and trying to talk it into an existence that I'm going to be a Raider for the rest of my life.
And that periodic fake country accent just kind of,
every now and then, his Texas twang pops out hardcore.
Here's Derek Carr talking a little bit about the structure of the contract and the fact that he did sign a team-friendly deal.
Everyone looks at like certain numbers and they're going to say, oh, well, they're not going to get the whole picture of how it's structured and how we did things, so that Tim, my agent, myself, and the team, we made sure, guys like Chandler, guys like Devontae, guys like hopefully Hunter and Foster, and those guys can stay here. The way we structured it, I went through a heartbreak already last time I signed my contract. My best friend left, you know what I mean? And I didn't want that to ever happen again. And so this was an opportunity for me to prove to the team, to the organization, to our fans, that the way we're going to structure this is so that we can keep, everybody together and really have real continuity, really have something to build on, And so for me, it was like, how do we do that? Usually in these negotiations, how much money can we get, and then how much can we save? And for this was just different.
There was the reference in there that we had previously mentioned that Khalil Mack had to leave after the last time Derek Carr did a contract, and the last time he did a contract, he was the highest paid player in the NFL.
Right.
And it was a real contract that made him the highest paid player in the NFL. That was during that time where every quarterback who was up for a contract became the next highest paid player in the NFL. And it was just one after another after another. They've gotten away from that, as evidenced by Derek Carr's contract. Now, part of it is the way it's structured, the way it looks, the way that it got reported, $40.5 million per year, but it's still a far different structure from the deals that other quarterbacks have gotten. And it does give the team some flexibility, and it does continue to put the onus on Derek Carr to continue to perform at a high level. And he's old enough now at this point that he goes into it with his eyes wide open. And like you said, if guys want to make that decision, that's fine. But I keep going back to you only have so many swings at the bat.
That's right.
You only have so many opportunities to get paid. And the moment that they believe that you're not getting it done, they're getting rid of you. I mean, if he has a disastrous season this year and he's healthy at the end of the year, yes, they'll get rid of him. I mean, Baker Mayfield could be a candidate to go to the Raiders in 2023. Josh McDaniels liked him in 2018. Tom Brady could be a candidate to go to the Raiders in 2023. They will have options next year. They didn't have options this year. They'll have options next year if they decide, based upon what they see from Derek Carr, that it just isn't working. There's no reason to think that they will come to that conclusion, other than the fact that they technically have a window out of this if they choose to take it.
Right, no question. All that's real. There's no denying it. And I don't know, there's a part of me, too, that also thought, hey, maybe Derek Carr was like, hey, who knows? Maybe this year's going to go in this New England way. Maybe I'm going to decide I don't want to freaking be here anymore. I don't really think that's the real thing. I come away with it more in the fact, or looking at it like this, like, watching a little of this yesterday was I came away more of going, ooh, why would he do this, or why did he take the contract, to more of like, I think he's actually become like a pillar of the organization, to where he's so loved and liked by ownership, and they know how professional he is, and they respect the player he is now, that he feels like he was comfortable enough to go, they're not going to do me wrong. This is not. I mean, I'm the guy here. He is the guy there. It's official. He is that guy. And I would say this too, knowing Josh McDaniels, having worked for him and played for him in Denver, I think a move like this is only going to endear Josh McDaniels more to Derek Carr. It's going to be like kind of what you said already. This is what Tommy did. I love this. Tommy did this. Tommy did this. I mean, nobody loves Tom Brady more than Josh McDaniels. So, I think that's only going to put McDaniels more in Derek Carr's corner to go, wait, this guy works, smart, does whatever he's got to do for the team. He's just like the guy, my buddy I left in New England. I feel like that's just going to bring them closer when it's all said and done.
McDaniels said, among other things yesterday, in connection with the new Derek Carr contract, what he did and what we were willing to come to terms on, I think shows you he is significantly invested in this place, this organization, and helping us in any way that he can to try to win. I don't think there's anything behind curtain number 2 here. There's no other intent on any of this other than to try to put the best team on the field for the Raiders, and Derek was obviously excited to try to do that as well. I hate to say this, but I don't know the timeline yesterday, but I feel like that once we started putting the truth out there about what the deal really is, they felt compelled to push back on it a little bit when they did the press conference.
I don't disagree with that either. I thought the same thing. I did. I was like, what the hell? What's up with this contract? There's got to be somebody answer something, and it did feel that way. I'm with you that they felt like they're kind of answering, like just answering the questions that you had posed out there on PFT and everything.
Now, look, guys, when you do that, make sure you come back to the microphone after you leave and say, Florio, write whatever you want.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm going to anyway. Thank you for the invitation and the permission. I am going to write whatever I want. But that's one of the things that bugs me about the industry generally, and this isn't anti-Derek Carr, and it doesn't matter whether you have an agent or you don't have an agent. There's a level of bullcrap that gets fed to us by the information robots who exist at the speed of 280 characters, who are trying to beat everyone else to Twitter with the news of a new contract. And in order to get the news of a new contract, they have to push the most favorable narrative possible when they get the information. So when the agent for Derek Carr gives that information to NFL media, ESPN, wherever, he's not going to say, oh, by the way, this is really only $24.9 million guaranteed for 1 year, and they can cut him after one season if they choose to. He's not going to say that. He's going to say what it is. Oh, it's $40.5 million new money average, and that's what gets put out there. And then the truth shows up a little bit later. I'm just surprised the truth showed up yesterday, early afternoon. Usually it takes a couple of days for the truth to roll out of bed, wake its ass up, get clothes on, make itself presentable, and catch up with the lie that's already baked in. I was really surprised that people were getting the truth to me yesterday, and I think the reason is people who had access to the truth were struck by how this thing was being sold when the reality was very different.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do. And, it's safe. Raiders, I'm excited for their future. Derek Carr's good. That, Devontae Adams,
Raiders fans should be very happy with this.
Right?
Don't get mad. You got your – now, I know Miles Simmons, who covered the Raiders for a year, says they're not sold on Derek Carr because he's never won a playoff game. So, it's like Kirk Cousins without the postseason win in New Orleans. I know.
Yeah.
But Raiders fans should be happy that they got the guy for 4 years at terms that are favorable to the team.
And what I want to say to Raider fans sometimes, because I saw some of that reaction on social media and stuff yesterday where I want to go well, what? When were they supposed to win a playoff game? In fact, when were they supposed to be in the playoffs? And they still got there last year. And then we're on the 8-yard line going into score to beat the team that went to the Super Bowl. And they're not as talented as them. So Derek Carr, he's a franchise quarterback. Yeah, he's not Mahomes or Josh Allen, but he's damn good. He can win a Super Bowl. He's good enough to win a Super Bowl, 100%. And I'll give him credit for not being selfish and doing such a nice team-friendly deal. What a good guy he is.
Now, if only he could get the Raiders into a different division, then they may have a better chance to get to the playoffs and win some playoff games.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.